I cannot hear John.
Hey guys.
Okay. Hey Saroja, you can hear us?
Yeah, I can.
They turn on any, the projector's not work now. Not here. Oops, here. Circuits remote. Oops, he's here. He's here. Dave's here.
Are we good?
I'm good.
All right. Good evening, Westborough, and welcome to the 14th meeting of FY 2026 of the Westborough Advisory Finance Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means, in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at Memorial Hall inside Town Hall at 34 West Main Street, and it is possible that all or some members of the public body may attend remotely, with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting can be accessed remotely via the link given in the meeting agenda. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or by accessing the meeting remotely as noted above. Additionally, the meeting will broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192 or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com Westborough TV. With that, we start the meeting. We have with us John Arnold to kick us off with the introduction. Go ahead, John.
Yes, hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me participate remotely. I'm on vacation and not back until Wednesday morning. But anyway, I wanted to let people know, as you know, Adam Samala resigned from the committee due to a new job change where he didn't feel he could put the time and resources that the town deserved into it. So I wanted to again thank him for his service and also thank him for giving me adequate notice so I could find a replacement. And so it's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight, remotely though he's there, Chris Cumsey. I first met Chris when he was running for, I believe, school committee last year. I met him very briefly during that time. And then I've met with him 2 or 3 times since then when he indicated that he may be interested in serving on the finance committee. And I was pleased to hear about his background, his approach to the town, and that he was willing to serve. So I won't try to describe his background other than by saying I welcome him to take the remainder of Adam's term, and I look forward to his participation and his contributions to the committee just as I do each and every one of you. So with that, I'll turn it over to let Chris give a little bit of an introduction to himself, and then I'll let you get on with your meeting. So thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome, Chris, and go ahead.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the introduction. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Cumsey. I've been in Westborough for about 10 years now. Like John mentioned, I was interested to be part of the school committee. I ran for the election last year. Last year now. I didn't make it, but, I always have interest in serving the community here in Westborough. As a result of that, and I'm here today to help out the AFC committee here going forward. So I look forward for your support from the board members here and also from John to guide me and help me move forward and serve the best. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome on board, and I'm sure that we all will be getting good inputs from you, which we always need.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Moving ahead. Anybody for public comments, which we don't see any. On the Zoom, we don't see.
No. Just Saroja and John.
All right. We have the AFC Reserve Fund transfer request today, and we have for that Christy with us, the town manager, but she is not around at the moment. I promise she's here for those who cannot see, but
You
we'll,
want to approve the minutes?
yes, I think we can go forward towards the approval of the available minutes while we wait for Christy. This is the December 11th, 2025 minutes for approval.
I move we approve the December 11th, 2025 minutes as written.
Bradley second.
All right. Ahuja, yes. So we just for Chris, we go in the order of the surname. So myself, then it's Beth, and then who else
Andrew.
it is? Then it's
Andrew.
Andrew,
Josh.
Josh. Then it will be Chris, right?
No, Jane.
Jane.
then me.
Oh yeah.
Then Saroja.
Jane, and then it's me.
Then it's
Then, so you're after
And-
Saroja.
and
I'm the last.
No,
No.
no. O'Day's last.
O'Day.
We're alphabetically challenged in this group. Through letter L is 8 of 9 members last names.
Okay.
There's only one past the midpoint,
Yeah.
so.
I think I'm
Pulling up
before
the
you.
rear.
Yeah, you're after Saroja.
Okay.
you have to Suraj.
Just makes things go quick.
Okay.
I think for the first few meetings, I need to take a note of the order as well.
The order.
right. All right. So yeah, I think we have the second. We have Walter move the
So no
motion.
comments, then.
Any comments?
No.
No. Okay.
Yours-
Ahuja, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Clap, yes.
Hansoge, yes.
Kumsi, yes.
Leslie, yes.
OJ, yes.
Kumsi wouldn't be because he didn't attend that meeting.
If he had watched the meeting, he's welcome to vote.
He's welcome to vote. Okay.
You
Yeah,
don't
you just-
have to have attended the meeting to vote on the minute.
Correct. You just have to be aware of the meeting and the minutes.
Yep.
So if you hadn't read them or. All right, now we can go to Krista.
Awesome. So there we go. We have the approval of minutes. Next, we have the town manager, Christy, for the AFC Reserve Fund transfer request. Let's go ahead.
Thank you. As you're all aware, the town has been involved in a few different lawsuits. There's, I think, 4 of them related to the 231 Turnpike, which is the former Regal Cinema. And then there's a couple others as well. And because of that, when we budget, because we don't know when these lawsuits will resolve, we try to budget based on our typical use, so non-litigation. And we're at a point where we need additional funding in order to pay costs incurred through our legal budget. And so we're asking for a reserve fund transfer of $50,000. We currently have just under $12,000 remaining in the budget. The total budget for fiscal 26 was $145,000. And then we will intend to go to town meeting and ask for additional funding to get us through the rest of the fiscal year. And then it's certainly up to this committee how you want to handle it. But what we've done in the past is we've also had a separate article to replenish your reserve fund in the amount that has been used for legal and other and any other uses that you've used. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Christy, any questions?
So I did notice that we, I think, increased the legal budget next year because
Yes.
we've been doing this kind of consistently. So it seems
Yes.
like a wise thing to increase in the regular budget, right?
Yeah, yes. We do hope that some of these will resolve before next fiscal year. And as you probably read in our press releases, we expect some reimbursement for costs incurred. But as you know, that goes into the general fund as opposed to going into the budget. That's a requirement. We don't have a choice there.
So how do we get reimbursed? Sorry, I mean, like I don't know the process.
That's okay. So if a settlement is approved, part of the settlement agreement could involve reimbursement of certain expenses.
So in the legal budget, was there anything budgeted for litigation?
No,
Nothing.
but nothing above what we typically incur.
How much would that be, like the norm?
So we had budgeted 145,000. Our individual monthly, so we're billed on a monthly basis. Sometimes it's as low as 14,000 to 15,000, and sometimes as high as 22,000. So some of that is cyclical. We pay more certainly in months where we're preparing for a town meeting or where we have a town meeting. We also are reimbursed from the Affordable Housing Trust for the costs that they've incurred. One item that we have paid for is costs associated with negotiating our cable contract. That's something that in the past, my understanding is that we had appropriated a warrant article for those legal fees. That's not something that we did. So we've just been paying it out of the legal budget. So it's just, we're not proposing that we do a separate article at this point because we're getting close to those contracts being completed. But in the future, that might be something that we want to do is appropriate a separate article for cable negotiations.
So the costs are not just litigation. They're obviously when we want to bring anything to town council.
Correct.
Because we operate we don't have an employee town council. We have a
That's right.
service that we use.
Right. So anything related to labor, any negotiations with unions, any negotiations with individual employees, that's council. Any interpretation of law, any acquisition of property, the easements right now being negotiated along the Otis Street corridor is another example of when we use town council. So any legal advice we would go to kind of town council for.
So you mentioned that 145K was currently budgeted for this fiscal year.
Yes.
How much are we increasing it to in the next budget?
180.
Do we have any concerns from the balance perspective? The
AFC reserve fund, I think it's full still.
Yeah, I don't think
We-
we've used
I don't
it
think
at all.
we've
I think
voted
this is the
anything
first
since-
transfer.
I'm not aware of
I
any other
don't
transfers you've done.
Yeah, I
How much
don't
is
rec-
in there?
It's 250,000.
Yeah.
And as Christy said in the past, if we have a concern, we can throw in an article to refresh it. It's free. It's from free cash and reverts to free cash if unused. So it's not such a bad thing to refresh it because it gives you the most options.
cushion.
Last year we refreshed it fully, and then I don't think we ever used another cent. But other years we have
Right.
reused it. It really. The wild card is the snow and ice budget because that's typically what it funds. If we get into one of these Februaries or late Januaries where it just snows all the time, we'll need that then. So I guess when does it's before the article, the warrant closes in February, right? That we
What
would have to decide on having
If
an
we
article.
wanted to refresh
Oh,
the
yes.
AFC.
Yes. I think in the first draft of the warrant, I was carrying that article
Okay.
because
she is.
you typically have.
Yeah.
But certainly if you're not interested in that, we could pull it. It's just there.
I would recommend we leave it there for now
there.
because we don't know
That's
what.
what we've done traditionally.
Yeah. Perfect. Any other questions?
We have the real wording, so I
Yeah.
can make a motion maybe. I move the AFC approves a transfer of $50,000 from the AFC Reserve Fund to the legal budget, line 11513-5219A.
Bradley, second.
Ahuja, yes.
We want to discuss.
Yeah, any discussions further?
Guess not. You were right.
All right. I don't think we have that, so I did.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, we are voting, Saroja.
So
Yeah, no, I caught that, but I didn't hear clap.
That's because
Oh,
we haven't
no
voted
one
yet.
else went yet.
Yeah.
So Bradley, yes.
Clap, yes.
Okay, Hansoge, yes.
Kumsi, yes.
Leslie, yes.
OJ, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Are
700.
700.
Thank you.
So you have to fill this out and sign it.
Yep.
We'll give it to her.
Yeah, I can take it if you want to do that now.
Okay. That was quick.
Quick is good.
Let's move ahead to the next topic, which is annual town meeting preparation. So, can I assume everybody has gone through and collected their hard books as well? Do you have a list of who has not yet?
There's still 3 individuals on the committee, I think, that have not picked up their books, but it is available this book is available online, so I don't know if folks are just looking at it online.
Okay.
They're available, though, for those individuals in our office.
In the office.
Yep. And we also have the school budget books as well, so you can pick both up at the town manager's office.
Perfect. Thank you, Christine. In the past, have you seen people pick up all the books?
In the past, not everybody wanted a hard copy, but most people did. So
Okay.
I don't know. Has anybody here not picked up their book?
I got Christy to bring them all to us today.
It was
So
picked up for me.
have yours.
I do have
Effectively.
mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to pick up mine as well. I am looking online, but I am gonna come and pick up.
And maybe Beth and maybe Josh. So maybe it's those 3.
Yeah, I can follow up with them.
Yeah.
But Saroja, you got the link, right? I just want to confirm the links for the budget books online. Both the
Yeah, I think you had sent that in a prior email,
Yes.
Prashant.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I did access them, so thank you for sharing those. I find that handy. Okay. Do we want to discuss that now? The budgets, what we have gone through so far. Do we have any questions since Christy is here?
Do you want me to go over the books briefly for folks who, or is that not, are you not there yet?
I would love that because I think there are a couple of things which will be very helpful. One is just the overall, since you're here, the overall, the first 30 pages, as you mentioned, which is like the key highlight of the whole budget for the town, as well as I think some of the concepts like tax levy. I think one thing which I drilled down deep during this Christmas vacation was getting a sense of the excess capacity and tax levy. So I think it may be helpful for others on this committee to know as well.
Great. I'll just go through the book and just point you to different areas where you can find information. So the first few pages just talk about how to use the budget book. For many of you probably remember that a few years ago we went to this. It's called a GFOA, or Government Finance Officials Association forum, and it's intended for there to be a lot of information here to serve as a communication tool to all of you and as well as the public. The first section is the budget message, and I think that that's really where we find kind of the highlights of the budget. But if I can point you to page 6, where we have the budget summary. This is the first instance in the book where you'll see what we're estimating the average single family increase to be for fiscal 27, based on what we know right now. So in that second table, if you look at the bottom, you can see that the percentage increase over the prior year has been declining. It's a little bit higher than last year for fiscal 27, but again, we're very early in the process. Last year at this exact time, we were estimating an increase to the average single family of $990. And then, as you know, when we set the tax rate in November, it went down to this $586.
Can I ask
Yeah.
or I don't know if this is a question or suggestion, but on the top of page 6, the first table, where it shows fiscal 26, fiscal 27, and the percentage increase.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, and maybe it's repeated later, but it struck me that, certain of these have a much bigger impact than others. For instance, a 10% increase in asset bet or something, or 15% has very little actual impact on the overall budget, even though it's a big number. So I don't know the best way to do this mathematically, but if there was another chart that showed what percentage of the budget.
Percentage of the total increase rather than percentage increase in the
well,
line
maybe
item.
both.
Right.
It's fine to have both, but I think that's interesting to note, because you could have something that say the schools, that is going to dominate the increase.
Isn't the number at the bottom 3.9% increase showing what you're looking for?
That's the total, but it doesn't tell me
The
that
relativity.
the fixed cost that's 4%. What percentage does that really? What percentage? You could do the math.
For example,
obviously.
the town expenses is the largest number, right? It's 6%. But if you look comparatively
Right.
versus fixed cost, that's 4%, it is actually a much smaller number. And so
Correct.
giving it sort of the relative scale.
That's what my point was,
Yep.
because you're immediately drawn to the 6%, but it isn't really 6% of the increase. It's a 6% increase in that not arbitrary, but selected item. So I don't know, it just seemed like it might be something in future years to,
So you could do
indicate.
dollar change, percent change, and then percent of total.
yes,
Kind of what you're saying.
something like that.
Yeah.
Sort of
I don't know
the
if that's
contribution
6%.
percentage.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a relativity.
It is something that we show in our presentations, but I'm not sure that it's anywhere else in the book. So I'll take that note.
I think I did a slide of that one year or something when I was doing my
We always-
slides
we
as
always
the
do a
chair, something,
slide
and
that
it's
breaks
just like,
it out.
oh yeah, this is actually the percentage of how much that meant or something. Because I found it.
Well, I guess we
interesting.
always break out the increase in dollar value, but yeah.
Right.
Okay. And so then skipping ahead to page 8, that's where we start talking about, we look at some excess levy capacity. And I think that I think there's a misunderstanding sometimes when we talk about excess levy capacity. So excess levy capacity is the amount of money that we could levy, but we don't. And so this chart at the top of page 8, when there is a positive at the bottom of the percent change, that means that we did not use any of our excess levy capacity. which means that even if we were at our levy limit, we would not have required an override. So I think that there's a lot of discussion because it is very complex, Prop 2.5, that if our budgets are going up more than 2.5%, that means that if we didn't have excess levy capacity, we would need an override, and that is not accurate. If we do not use excess levy capacity, that means that we are within that Prop 2.5. And so you can see in fiscal 25, we did use some of our excess levy capacity. I think we looked at it, and over the last 20 years, I think we've used excess levy capacity. I believe it's 2 or 3 times, and we'll show that more clearly at the budget summit. If you skip it over to the next page, page 9, we've always talked about our benchmark communities or our data dashboard communities in the budget document. As you know, we updated those benchmark communities this year, so these are all shown here. And then if you go just into this whole section, one request that we received, I believe it was from one of your members at the September budget summit, was to look at spending across different categories. So the next few pages are showing you how we compare to our benchmark communities in different spending categories. So you can look at those. And then we used fiscal 20 to 24 because that's the information that was that's available through the state's website. So skipping ahead to page 15, that's really, I think, where you're going to get the most information about the different things that we're doing in the FY27 budget. We call it budget highlights. I think over the years we highlight just about every budget because we want to make sure that it's clear what's happening in the different budgets. So, as an example, we try to pull out things that have a higher percentage increase. To Walter's point, some of these things might be sort of low dollar value but high percentage. So we try to highlight them anyway. You can see in the first one, select board town manager budget, it's a pretty big increase to expenses, 7.8%. It's $2,300 and it's for printing of the annual town report. So we try to go through each budget and really identify some big changes. We talk about the cable TV enterprise fund. So we haven't really talked about that much in the past. As you remember, there was a Westborough TV article last year. We've had an enterprise fund for several years. So now we're putting all of that together. We've created its own budget. So you'll see we talk about that here. I guess pointing you to Council on Aging, you'll see that there's actually a decrease in that budget based on a few different things that are happening. But I do want to point out that this is the one place where we are requesting an increase in hours. We have a program volunteer coordinator that's currently 32 hours a week. And we're requesting to move that into a 40-hour position. And we'll talk more about that at the budget summit, but this is the one position that you'll see this in the budget. And it felt like an appropriate time to do it given the decrease in the budget. Oh wait, that's not true. So that's one staff change. And then the next one, community development. Sorry, there is another proposal here to add a local inspector position. And so you'll see that explained here. And that is offset by the Sealer of Weights and Measures budget, as well as a reduction in part-time hours in that budget. So this section, I think, really is sort of the meat of what you probably want to look at ahead of the budget summit and as you're meeting with departments, because it's really highlighting any changes that we're making.
Christy, just going back, looking at relative to the benchmark communities, is there a way to look at our spending relative on a per capita basis? So you could, again, trying to look at relativity, and then as we get into town meeting, trying to figure out, what's a reasonable level of increase, both dollars and percentage wise.
I can look at what you have. There's a lot of information on that site, so I can look at it.
Because I think I'm going to ask the same thing on the school committee side. We have the spending, but spend per, and I went through and manually calculated, right or wrong, right, cost spend per pupil. but it'd be nice to look at that relative to other, of our benchmark communities. So
Okay,
just to give us some relativity.
sure. Yep. I'll look for that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So then, skipping beyond that budget highlight section, I guess one of the things I should note before we do that is that you're also going to see, in addition to now seeing the more about the Cable Advisory Enterprise Fund, another thing you're going to see now is the Norfolk County Agricultural High School, which you remember we funded in October, and now it's part of our budget. So just going to page 24, I do want to just note there's a typo here under levy limit. The definition, it says estimated amount that could be levied on the taxes based on 2.5% over FY27. That should say 26. We'll fix that in the online version, but if you want to note that in your books. And again, just really trying to explain where we are at in terms of our own levy limits and levy ceiling, and why, though we have a lot of excess levy capacity, I think we as a town are showing fiscal prudence by not using it on a regular basis. And so then, so on the next page, we speak to the 5-year financial forecast. I think that that's come up here many times. We don't do a lot of presentation around that, but there's a brief paragraph here, but you'll note that the 5-year financial forecast, so expenditures separate from revenues, is in the appendix. And so we do that work every year where we update the actuals and we go out 5 years on our estimates. I'm just going to skip to page 30, which is where we start talking about revenue sources. So there's a lot of discussion, or there has been in the last few years, about revenues and how they're estimated. So this chart has always been here, but I think it's important to take a look at this section. And you can see where our revenues were in fiscal 25, what they're budgeted for in 26, and how we're estimating them in 27. I will say, I think we hear often that we should be increasing our estimates for revenues. And I guess what I would say is we could increase our estimates much higher, and that would make that $624 increase go down. But when we get to November, it doesn't matter what our estimates were. We have to set the tax rate to cover our expenses. And so if we've overinflated our estimates or not been conservative, then we've asked town meeting to pass a budget based on an estimate of 624, say, which by the time we go to set the tax rate could be higher because the revenues aren't coming in at the same rate that we had hoped they would. So being conservative allows town meeting to sort of understand what we think the average single family estimate would be on, I guess I would say on a conservative basis, on more of a worst case scenario. Understanding that when we set the tax rate, we certainly look at all of this again. So estimating revenues higher will make the presentation better at town meeting, but it's really disingenuous when you look at, once you get to setting the tax rate.
So I just had a question here on the assessed value projection. So when these, because that I guess is interlinked towards the property tax collected projections as well. Is there something to guide on these projections as well, like how these projections have come up for the assessed value on page 26?
How are they taking into account that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're using market projections. In terms of getting into the detail of that, I would have to ask the assessor to come.
Okay.
But using our history, using market projections, and then looking at that, making estimates going forward.
Got it.
The next couple of pages are really just breakdowns of our expenditures. And then we have the organizational chart. And then one thing that was added newly, I think 2 years ago, was page 35, which is our FTE chart, which shows the breakout of FTEs for each department.
Christy, can I ask you a question on
Yep.
page 30? I mean, to your point, right? I mean, like, we need to estimate higher. Looking at this motor vehicle excise, I mean, that caught my attention. The actuals for 2025 were about 4.5 million. 2026 budgeted was 3.9. Knowing that it was higher in 2025, why are we estimating only 4 million?
Where are you?
Which line are you on? Are you
Motor
on the
vehicle
property
excise.
tax?
Page 30.
Motor vehicle excise. So there's a couple different things that we look at.
Oh,
So
which line?
the motor vehicle
vehicle
excise
Oh, motor vehicle.
on page 30. Yeah.
Okay.
We look at we do a 5-year look back to try to identify averages. That's our typical approach. And then we also look at market conditions. We talk to experts in the field. So right now we've only increased it 100,000, but again, we'll continue to look at that. Our biggest commitment, as you all know, when you get your excise tax bills, comes in March. So we would look to adjust that depending on that commitment in March.
It depends heavily on new car sales. It's
Exactly.
the first year is
That
they
particular
dropped
one.
really rapidly. So
right.
I think post-COVID, there was a shortage of cars for a while, and I think it was anomalously high or something.
Yeah,
It seems
so-
like. So I think they're being a little, see if you keep
Right.
it up, right?
Our finance director actually, for that one in particular, reaches out to folks in the automobile industry just to see to talk about what's going on. And then if you just look at the economy, are people likely to be in a position where they're purchasing new vehicles? I mean, it certainly is estimates based on several factors, but again, we would look at that
Gotcha.
multiple times through the year and potentially increase it.
The big driver, again, back to relativity, is the property taxes.
Correct.
Because that's going up 5 million versus the 9.
And that's and given that we are relying a lot, like almost 80% on the property value for our spending and increase in taxes, I feel like that's the biggest risk we have as well, which is if the property value doesn't change or doesn't go as high or as much as, or for God's sake, falls down, what do we do?
Then your tax rate goes up.
Right.
Right.
That's
Or
the
the
point.
tax rate per thousand goes up.
Right.
It's going down now because property values are
Is going
going
up.
up, but
Right.
your taxes are still going up. So in the end,
That's
in November, the real calculation happens, whether or not, and by then you'd certainly know better what your excise income would be, right?
Right.
And that's, the number in this book doesn't really set the tax rate. The number that we decide
Exactly.
in November
Yeah.
does. And the same with that's why you get an estimated bill the first 2 months, or first 2 quarters,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, yeah, you can haggle a little bit over the estimated thing, but the real time to haggle is in November or October, I guess, before that. If it's clearly higher than that, then I'm sure you guys use the closer to the real numbers at that point,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
Right. And we have no input on that, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it looks reasonable to me relatively.
I think it is, it'd be disingenuous to put in inflated numbers and then come to the end and, oh yeah, well, this didn't come in, this didn't come in, this come in. So I think it is better to approach town meeting as, yeah, this is this number. In the past, historically, we've come in less than that by the time the real number comes, but I think that's a good way to go, not the opposite.
Right. Because we've seen it in other communities where they may have been anticipating a particular development. So they're estimating like a high building permit fee or something. And then if that doesn't come to fruition, taxes go up with really no discussion because the town has voted on the budget. So. The next section is the budget table, which I think is probably helpful as you're talking to different folks. It shows the percentage increases in the different budgets, expenses, and salary and wages. And that just is every budget is listed on here, and at the end is the enterprise funds. The community profile is really more narrative for the most part, talking about all the guiding documents that we talk about, giving some input or information on where we're at with the master plan, the strategic plan, climate action plan, and we've added the senior needs assessment. But I think if you go to starting on page 47, it really just starts talking about financials related to the town, as well as our history. And then starting on page 50, you actually get some graphs related to some of our larger revenue sources. So, page 51, even though we all know what happened, it's still pretty shocking to see that steep dive around COVID for meals tax and hotel motel, but you can see that we're coming back from that. And then ambulance receipts is also shown there.
So when they pay the meal tax, is that a surcharge on the tax locally, or is it like the town gets the entire tax on meal? Like there's a sales tax when you buy a tax when you say you sit down in a restaurant and have a meal.
Right.
Does that all go to the town, or is it a percentage like surtax?
The
and
point,
the state gets most of it.
right. So the 0.75% added
Okay.
to the state's meals tax. Yeah.
So we get 0.75% and they get 6.25. Yeah. They being the state, so it still comes back.
It's still us.
Yeah,
but
still us,
Right.
but differently.
broader
us.
pool of
Yeah.
us.
The town actually gets 75 points, 0.75%.
Right.
Good. A lot of food.
Yeah. Going to the page 68, which is the next section, the budget overview. That first page just that identifies things that we're sort of still waiting on. So the state budget, certainly House 1 will come out later this month, and we'll update our estimates on what our state aid will look like. Insurance, we always don't know that at this point because we're experience rated, and we try to get more experience under our belt before we renew. But we're working with them. We're working with the Insurance Advisory Committee as well. As you know, last year we actually made a change in carrier in order to avoid a very large increase. Assabet and Norfolk Aggie have to finalize their assessments, and then we have outstanding collective bargaining agreements with the police patrol union, the firefighters, and then the police chief contract. And then what's also not listed here is the school is also negotiating contracts as well. Actually, you know what else is not listed here is that we don't go out to borrow until March of each year, and that always has a significant influence on our debt budget because, like revenues, we're conservative when we're estimating what our interest rate will be. And then I think just, kind of going through the rest of it, I didn't have anything else specific that I wanted to mention, except if you're looking at other types of revenue, this explains the different types of revenue that we receive. We have not yet closed out fiscal 25. We do have a new town accountant. She started, I think, 2 weeks ago. She keeps coming back, so we're pretty excited about that. And so we're working to get that completed, obviously, before town meeting so that everything is certified. So these are estimates that you're seeing on page 69 in your book. And then the very end of this section is looking at the different sort of grouping, or not the very end, I guess, in the middle, looking at the different groupings and what's driving increases in like service areas. So health and human services, culture and recreation, talking about each one of those. And then following that detailed budget information is every single department head spends a lot of time writing a narrative, talking about what they do, performance measures, their goals, short-term and long-term, and gives the detailed breakdown. Their budget tables are also included. So that's the bulk of the rest of this document. And then we have the capital improvement plan, which I'm actually presenting on tomorrow night with the select board to talk about sort of our new approach to the long-term outlook, the methodology behind that, what we're recommending. And then following that, you'll certainly, I'm sure you'll hear from all the department heads about their capital requests. Select board's not going to talk about the specific articles tomorrow. They're just really going to talk about the approach, and then they'll talk about articles at subsequent meetings. If you looked at the warrant, you saw that I did not do one sort of very long capital article, but I grouped it by sort of categories. I'm going to talk to the select board about that tomorrow night, see if they like it. But that's how it is on the first draft of the warrant. So
It keeps the letters in the front half of the alphabet. Instead of A through P, now we have several A through E's or something. It seems like they're grouped in a reasonable manner to me. I mean, I thought.
One of the knock-on effects of that choice is that we've tended to have voted for all the capital stuff in a batch. So I'd imagine if we stuck to the same numbers, whereas before we would vote for everything A through H, which included a diversity of things, now as we go through voting these individual blocks, unless somebody moves to break them apart, then we'd be voting at least thematically consistently, presumably.
Yeah, it would be nice, though, to see what the total impact is, so the total aggregate amount of what they're requesting. Because if you break it into category, you want to see the whole total. Because a lot of that.
We didn't see that before anyway.
no.
Well, I
Because
know,
they're
wouldn't it be
all
nice to
separate
know
articles.
that? Because
Well, it's
a
in
lot
the-
of these warrants are coming out of free cash, which
It's
is,
in the capital plan. So if you look at,
They also tell you how much in this book, like how much free cash is in theory being right in the capital plan, how much is being
Right.
used from free cash.
so
Right.
if you look at page
If everyone's approved.
CIP 7, so if you go to the capital plan and go to page 7, it has the
the
capital.
CIP 7?
Yeah, CIP 7. It has the capital budget, and it breaks out the different funding sources and the amount of
Oh,
each. Yeah.
They also, each of the different departments give sort of their 5-year plan that we break down. And because we get it in PDF, I'll put all of these into an actual spreadsheet before we really get into them.
I was going to ask
You're
that,
talking
but
about
if you have the
the-
budget table on spreadsheet.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll put all of this into a spreadsheet before we.
Do you have
I'm
the
happy
Excel?
to give you the budget table as an Excel file. if
That would be
that's helpful.
delightful.
Awesome.
Yes.
Because I end up with some weird things. I end up having to like turn text into numbers inevitably. So if you wanted to send me the Excel,
Are-
that would make my life easier.
That plus, I think we go through those revisions where it's just easier to punch in the numbers and see what's the cumulative effect. Yeah.
Do you want the capital budget in this spreadsheet?
Sure.
too?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, that schedule's really good, that CIP 7.
Okay, great.
On an unrelated note, earlier we see like what the average single-family tax bill is by the community again. So back to like page 71.
Okay.
So we're second highest. It's kind of like a bugaboo for me. We're second highest, but the whole question is, why are we so high? Is there anything that can help us try to figure that out?
Well, I guess one thing that I would say is if you go back and look at the benchmark narrative that we did,
Yeah.
some of these, this is not the only reason, but some of these have a split tax rate. So that's something that you'll want to understand. It's really, I think the narrative will be helpful, but I also just think, even when you're going through how we compare to other communities in our spending and the different types of spending, it really shows where communities like individually place value. So I don't know I don't think you thought there was a simple answer. I don't know that there's a simple answer to it.
Yeah, there's just gonna be a way to try to communicate that to us to communicate and feel comfortable with that as we provide guidance or advice to, the townsfolk. That's where I struggle.
So one of the, I mean, I don't know if you consider this helpful. One thing that we like to show is a breakdown of the actual dollars in the tax bill and where those dollars are directed. So it doesn't explain why the total is what it is necessarily, but it shows where each individual dollar is going in terms of service. So I don't know if you've seen that. It's like a big house, and then we show where the individual dollars are going for the average.
Can you
single
send
tax
that
bill.
to
Yeah.
us?
Yeah.
And I think it was at last year's budget meeting where it may even have been you, Terry, had suggested that we get a similar view to that for each of the different towns, to the extent that's possible. And I think that would require plumbing the individual, the budget books for each of the other towns to see how they break that down. So there's no confidence that it'd be 1-to-1.
So that was the purpose of that section that showed the different graphs. I don't know how easy it would be to sort of take their average single family and do dollar for dollar, like we do with ours, but we could look into it.
So that kind of like building off your point too, if it was, it's a single tax rate, even if it's like a couple of examples, so you kind of say, okay, we're reasonable, as opposed to like we go in there and we're like, oh God, we're so high, and now we're gonna, we're requesting another, X number of dollars on top of an already high rate.
So, and one of the things is, I applaud the addition of these, breaking out the budget into the different groups and the comparisons, but those are all also increased percent versus absolute dollars. So it may be interesting. I mean, how much you want to drill, but for instance, are we in education, we're sort of in the middle of the pack in increase, but in absolute dollars per pupil or something, where do we stand? For public works, I don't know how you judge public works, by mile of road or people, or, I mean, who knows? Because some towns don't have sewer, some towns don't have water, so it's probably a little hard to judge all that.
I can,
But that
Oh, sorry.
that might be where some of the clues come. We have an ambulance department, right?
Right,
Which
and
actually
that's-
brings in a couple of $1 million of revenue a year,
Right.
but we certainly buy ambulances and hire people for that. So you'd expect that might cost more than if you didn't have that.
so we tried to highlight some of those things in the narrative, so I'm happy to send that along again. And then I can also send a link to the website where we pull all this information, because it's fully public. And if there's other charts or graphs that we can run when you're looking
The
through
nerds can.
it. I'm sure Jane already knows how to get there.
I'm on it.
Yeah, you're on it. But because that was kind of my takeaway when I went through the book too. It's we've got percentage increases or increase over 4 or 5 years, but that doesn't tell me what was the absolute dollars and what was the dollar baseline to what the actual dollars were. And then
Yeah,
looking
like
at-
if they weren't spending anything on that particular thing and they start spending some, it would seem like it would be a large increase, but it may not be to the level that
Right.
amount.
Right. So just trying to get our arms around it a little bit more.
Sure.
I mean, I think it'd be helpful for us to understand it and be able to communicate it.
That's all I was gonna
Yeah.
kind of point out.
That's
but
great.
happy to ansur questions
great.
all along the way
No,
if you
it
have
was
other
great
questions.
reading over the holiday. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Timing is perfect.
I have a question. The capital stabilization fund, is that intended? I mean, one of the thoughts I had, to make a little explanation of behind this, is I like the idea of not putting more free cash into the annual, we're putting in 450 again to lower the tax rate, but not putting more into that.
Right.
But would we ever consider putting more free cash into paying down, not just buying items that we're buying new without loans, but paying down loans early, in essence? And because then you save over long term, and that seems like not like that's a one-time item. That's not a thing, but it strikes me like, and sort of there was some mention of that in this capital thing, but I got the impression that was more of, well, what if one year we didn't have the free cash, so we'd have to, or is the intention to pay down the current debt with that?
So a couple things. So so we're talking to our financial advisor about that potential. But we can't make any recommendations about the use of free cash until we've certified it. So that there's no recommendation currently. But we are talking to our financial advisor about the potential for doing that in a way that doesn't create any sort of structural deficit.
Right.
So there's that. There's also potential to further fund not capital stabilization, but just stabilization, because we haven't done that in a couple of years. So all of that will come once we've certified in terms of recommendations. Capital stabilization, though, is not intended to be sort of a fund that we just have available. It's intended to be a fund that we're feeding, staying in line with our fiscal management policies, and then avoiding taking on additional debt before the capital improvement fund starts accumulating a balance. So over the next 10 years, we're saving for capital so that we're not incurring additional debt. Once capital improvement fund starts accumulating a balance, there would be no need for that capital stabilization. Yeah. So it's not maybe this isn't what you were saying, but it's not intended to be sort of the rainy day fund that stabilization account is, where that's really for catastrophic or extraordinary instances. If you look at the long term, there's a couple multi-million-dollar, not tens of millions, but multi-million-dollar projects on there that we would typically have to borrow for, that if we're saving for it through the capital stabilization, we could potentially, town meeting could approve use of that capital stabilization money to pay that and avoid taking on additional debt.
So that was like years ago. We did that with the ladder truck, I think, or one of the fire trucks or something. We started doing it.
We created the capital stabilization account.
Yeah.
I think the first things we put in it was like $30,000 for the cemetery and also for apparatus. But when we were funding it at that time, we were funding it as a raise and appropriate.
Oh, okay.
And so that came.
That's a big difference.
That I don't think it had the same sort of support. This would just be moving free cash into this other bucket that would restrict it to capital, with the intention of using it to avoid taking on debt before capital improvement starts.
And is that still considered part of the total reserve then in our 10 to 15% thing, or not? Or
the way it's called out specifically in the comprehensive fiscal management policies, it says free cash and stabilization.
Okay.
I don't think there's $60,000 in it right now.
So it's irrelevant now, but
I don't think we ever used it. So one of the things that needs to come is we need to come through the finance team with some amendments to align with what we're proposing, which means it would come back to you like it always does, and then go to the select board. And so we could adjust that in terms of making sure that counts in the reserve.
yeah, because I find that if we do have, I don't want to call it extra, but more free cash than we necessarily need to keep, it seems to me a great way to
pay back the.
to not create a structural deficit, but still save the town money by paying down debt or not taking debt.
Not taking out debt. Yeah. And I think it probably depending on, again, how much money we have in free cash, it's probably also timely to move some money into stabilization. Because that's also supposed to be maintained at 5 to 7%. And since you're chasing it's 5 to 7% of the operating budget, which is obviously
going up.
increasing. So if
We
you're
were-
not always,
And we got it to almost right at the 5%,
it was
right?
really, it was yeah,
But-
right
but
there.
So we gotta
yeah,
be
a couple
below
years
now.
ago. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
excellent, that's good.
I just had one question, Christy, on the OPEB. I think OPEB is mentioned as one amount, which is 1.1 million, which we are still funding every year, right? For the
So actually, if you go to,
In the appendix?
What was, which one's that for?
if
for
you go to
the pen,
if you go to the appendix,
retirement.
sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
if you go to page 14 of Appendix A,
Yeah.
There it is. Yep.
so you'll see our OPEB funding schedule. So we're still working towards that 1.1 million. So for fiscal 27, we have $800,000 in the budget. We'll add another 200,000 from free cash. And that'll get us to $1 million this year. And then next year, it'll be that $1.1 million. And then we'll get up to 1.1 through the budget in fiscal 29.
Perfect. So does this projection until FY 2029 mean that it will continue, right? It will go beyond this as well.
Yes, so so the zero means that in fiscal 29 we won't be using any free cash to fund OPEB. It'll be fully in the budget at that 1.1 million.
Which will assume, I guess, which assumes that we go with the same staff. I mean, if we increase the staff, let's say, then it changes.
So right, so what we did is let's see. So if you go to the next page, number 4, beginning in fiscal 23, we increased the annual funding appropriation by $5,000 for each benefited position added. And so if you go to the insurance budget, which is its own tab, in the back, in the middle of the book, you'll see that there's actually a line item for OPEB position increases. So we've been adding that $5,000 when we've added staff. So in addition to the 1.1 million that we're working towards, we're budgeting an additional $5,000 per position added.
position.
Yeah.
Which looks like it's up to 85,000
Right.
additional. So it's and practically it'll be 1.2 million we'd be putting in by the time we
Right.
get to the end.
FY 29.
Oh, 1.2. Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
1.1
Yes.
plus 85.
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe there'll be another person.
Christy, just to get a little bit more clarification on this table, on appendix A, page number 14.
Yep.
So did I hear you say that once we get into fiscal year 2029, we don't have to add any more funds from the free cash because it's going to be budgeted within the annual budget for the year forward?
Right. So, so our goal was to get back to 1.1 million. So just for context, in 2014, we made some pretty significant changes to our health insurance and we saved $1.1 million. So we started budgeting that amount into OPEB in that year. During COVID, we did not put anything into OPEB. So that's why we created this schedule to work ourselves back up to that 1.1 million.
Okay.
Understanding that the idea still is that once we've fully funded our retirement, that we would move those funds we would start redirecting those funds into OPEB.
But how does that 5,000, which you mentioned, for every new position which we add, where does that get added to?
So it's over and above that. So if you go, you have a tab that just says insurance.
Yeah.
And if you go to the second page of that, you'll see the budget and it's 5707A OPEB position increases. So you'll see the 85,000 for fiscal 27.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any? Andrew has been quiet.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Great
Christy.
book.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I mean,
Oh,
I started looking at some of these tables, Christy. I don't know if, I mean, do we ask it here or do we discuss this and then go back to the town manager, or how do we typically do it? For example, I mean, on the budget
Question is,
table.
do we ask here those questions that come up in the budget, or do we wait until the
Well-
full presentation happens at the budget
Like,
summit?
if you're talking about fire, police, DPW, schools, we'll get a presentation on the 29th.
Okay. that
And you'll
explains.
have an opportunity to ask questions then. So if there's a more structural question or a
Request for
large area
information.
question, you could ask
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
but if,
yeah.
if the details of that,
Then I'll
it's
wait.
probably better to get a presentation, and then often we have those people back anyway. It's
Yeah, those were more
seem
specific to the
not
department.
able to get all our answers at the first time, but I don't know
school,
why.
I
But
think, right?
schools usually come back, and we've even had some of the other departments back on capital things and stuff, because
We've
people
made
think
Chris
about
come
it.
in multiple times.
Yeah,
for
Chris.
sure.
Chris is always back here. Poor Chris, because he has a lot of articles too.
Yeah.
I mean DPW articles. So.
So just to get everyone on the same timeline, so we're required under the charter to do a budget hearing. The budget hearing will take place whatever that Tuesday is, the 26th.
29th.
It's before that. It's the
Oh, the
Tuesday
summit.
before. So what would that be? The 27th. So January 27th at the select board meeting, we'll hold the budget hearing, which is where you'll get a more in-depth presentation about the fiscal 27 budget, and then sort of an overview of the capital. And then on the 29th, that's the all-day meeting. I usually give a brief overview just for folks who were unable to attend on Tuesday. And then that's when we have the fire chief, the police chief, DPW director, and school. And then we also bring in, if there's time, anything that's extraordinary. So actually CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, has asked to come to that just to give, because it's the first year we're spending money. So they'll probably be on the agenda as an example.
Yeah.
And so on the 27th, what is that one, Christy?
It's a select board meeting, but it's when we do it's the public hearing on the budget.
Oh, okay, got it.
So
Yeah.
I really recommend you watch at least that part of the select board meeting on Westborough TV, or you can come in person if you want. But it's a good warm up for Thursday's meeting, and
You get to hear what
Yeah,
the public
yeah.
has, if
and
there
you
are
also
any
get
feedback or
opinion
comments.
if there is.
Yeah.
There's generally not that much there, I think, but we hope. But yeah, whatever. It's definitely a good presentation
And what will
and
the public
overview.
have access to by then?
The full budget book is on the website.
Okay.
And that's been on the website since December 21st.
Yeah, so they see what we see.
Yep, fully available. They'll see the warrant at that point. The only thing that might come up that hasn't been seen is if some of these unknowns come out, specifically the state budget. Often House 1 will come out kind of right around that time, and so we might make an update to that.
And then all the capital right now that's in the warrant articles, have those been scrubbed, or is that like a bottoms up list of everybody's like wants, or?
So that went through the capital expenditure planning committee process in the fall.
Okay,
And they recommended all of those articles be moved forward.
they did.
Yes. And Andrew is your representative.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
Sure. And the details of what was covered and what was approved is in the capital section. We can talk a little more when we do liaison, so.
I think one other thing, sorry,
That's okay.
One more
maybe
thing,
an
just one
extending
more
it, but just
thing.
one more. I think we are too inspired by the Apple keynotes. But
One more.
I think one thing which would help, given I have attended 2 budget summits now, budget sessions now, is any revision that happens. I think if we upload that to town, maybe if we have kind of like a date and timestamp on that file as well, that would let know that, okay, this is as of this date. Because when we look at the website and look at the budget, it's kind of like stale because it's as of December 21st. But then when the subsequent updates happen, there's no way to figure out, are you looking at the latest number or the previous number? So maybe something tactical to have the date and time that this is as of this revision is as of this, helps to know that what is the latest there.
Yeah, I know that we try to give this committee those updates, but I think
Yes.
I think what you're suggesting makes sense. If there's something we can put together, that's not necessarily going through the entire budget and updating everything, but yeah, for the public to see that, I think we'll work
Yeah,
on.
simple thing I put is file name, maybe.
Yeah, yep, that makes sense. But we will definitely keep this committee updated. We'll work on something that's more broadly for the public. So,
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
all right,
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Christy.
thank you.
Christy.
This is the last one.
I promise.
We'll bring Christy back more times.
Oh, we have to visit with us plenty.
She's so happy.
Awesome.
We don't go on as late as the select board, so this must seem easy, relative.
Okay.
Late meeting for us, 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks.
Christy.
Thank you.
It used to be 11.
Hey, Beth.
Hi.
So we have Beth. I don't know when you joined, Beth, but I think we have a new member as well.
Well, yes.
Chris. Yes.
Hi, Beth.
I don't think you are
Hello.
able to see us, but yeah.
That's what Beth
He's
thinks.
not on the screen.
Oh, he's not.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
She's in San Francisco right
That's
now.
from her.
No, I'm actually back in Massachusetts, but
I don't know, I see the Golden Gate Bridge.
I know. I'm from California.
All right. I think, shall we move ahead with before I move to the liaison updates, anything on the readiness for the budget summit that this group would like to discuss, or do we need a meeting before the summit to go over any kind of questions or plan for the summit that AFC has?
So one of the things that was significant last year was the notion that we had that idea of a budget cut that percolated its way through. And I'm not saying I advocate for that right now, because that should be a decision that this whole group comes to. But if we want to make recommendations, like, we would do well to be ready to talk about it a little in advance.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. And I say that because I think that it was harder for other departments to react on short notice last time when they had to like walk back some of their budgets before. And so to the extent that if we thought, I think right now we're looking at around 3.9% as an increase. If we wanted to propose a target that we would like to recommend, then that would be a fair and reasonable thing to think about in advance. And I honestly, I don't know how this aligns with timing for when they're ready with their budgets, because obviously a lot of budget work has already been done. But that would be one thing I want to think about this group adopting going into that meeting.
So just to add to what you said, I mean, the 3.9 increase in the budget translates to roughly $648 per family for the tax increase, right? And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So last year, if I remember correctly, it was roughly $1,100 or $1,000 increase in the tax. And that made a lot of questions to be asked in terms of reducing the school budget, right?
So I'm not sure I'm hanging with your numbers, but yes, that was the concept.
Okay.
And it actually went both school and town. School only ended up doing a 0.5%
Reduction.
cut, whereas the town did full percentage. But even that, the increase was, I think, over $600. So we can talk about how we were successful, like for the first time in my years doing this, actually having the budget like impacted to the negative. But in the end, people still felt an increase. It was just a smaller increase when all the different pieces are layered into it.
Right. So I think we are going back into the same direction where, we are still causing an increase to the tax by roughly $650 based on the numbers we have. So how do we defend, or how do we justify that increase? I mean, what's this team's role in saying that that number is valid, that is acceptable, and this is the direction which we should move forward with?
So I think, and I don't mean to speak for others, because others people at the chair level have been a lot closer to this. I would say that what has been very unsuccessful is to wait until everything is fully cooked and then look for $1,000 here or $100,000 there and then try and affect change that way. That doesn't work because by then everything is already booked and approved. So the more powerful way to do it would be to make a recommendation. And we could recommend anything. Ultimately, we're responsible for presenting the budget. So we can recommend anything we want, and other groups can accept it or not. But our estimates are the first to get advanced as part of the budget in when we present it to the town. But we're not here to be adversarial to any of the groups we're working with, which is why we want to try and produce something as a realistic feedback. Last time it was a percentage of the budget that was not including new spending and not including a lot of other things. We could say we would like to keep the increase between 3% and 4% this year, for example. We could say we want to cut something by X percentage as well. We can kind of say anything we want, but again, not wanting to be adversarial, this has to be realistically applied for how the town will and the school will embrace that.
Okay.
That's part of what the AFC does, right? It helps navigate the town wisely in terms of our recommendation as to how much, help them understand as well as help them navigate whether it justifies to pay this extra amount of dollars, or if we feel that it has to be challenged. Then before even we get to the town meeting like we did last year, we ask those questions to figure out whether that spending increase is justified or not, or is being done wisely or not. So,
and how do we get to that recommendation? I mean, what are the steps which we follow to review this budget, where we come up with suggestions on whether?
I mean, this is the forum where it comes up.
We're in the steps. We read the budget book, we read the narrative, we get a presentation, we ask questions, and you have to decide if you think there's value in it or not in your recommendation. So there is no way to change that dollar amount without changing services, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And we saw that last year. Certain things had to change in order to reduce that number. So a lot of it comes down to your personal preference.
Yeah.
There were people
last year,
Go ahead, Ben.
good, but
well, I was going to say last year we had discussions about whether services were something the community wanted, or that at least we should put forward, like, these services will cost a certain amount of money. Because a lot of people want to cut the budget, but they don't want to cut services. And we have to be realistic about that balance.
Yep. Makes sense.
And I don't think we at least for myself, we don't have enough information right now. Like, even looking at all the capital requests out there, I don't know what is a mandatory need to have it. It has safety issues. It's got regulatory issues if we don't invest in the capital, for example. So I'm not even prepared to have an opinion on many of those things. I went through the budget book, and sure, I can see that most of the increase is coming from salaries, and also on the school budget, on the school side and on the town side, and then it's on transportation on the school side. The other expenses, in my mind, going back to relativity, is very small, and we're going to have to kind of like peel back that onion. I think the train already left the station in terms of like a tops down kind of guidance saying, should the budget have rolled up to 0 to 3? I'm making it up. 0 to 3%. The thing rolls up to 3.9. Is it valid? Is it not? And I personally, I don't have enough information yet to say, yeah, that's a justified number. It's a solid number. We worked it hard. You really can't squeeze, any more, lemon juice out of the lemon.
Well, at the
There's one other
tri-board
thing-
meeting, there was a discussion that basically led to the idea of preparing a budget at
Level services, yeah,
So, and that's what they've done.
yeah. Well, it was level services with an asterisk.
Well, that was the year before.
No, that was this year.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That was the only one I did.
Right, but the
Yeah.
but the
that's
other thing that we
basically it.
have to take into account is sometimes if we delay spending, we will pay more as a town. So we have to be cognizant of what are we really doing in the town's best interest.
Right, and that has to come out through the conversations, right? Of if you do it now, or if you do, what's the ramification if you don't invest now, or if you don't spend the money now? And that should come through, I'm thinking, through the budget presentations. It's not free money, so, it's just like you're doing your home budget. Can I spend that money now? Is it mandatory? And can I defray? Can I do it cheaper? Alternatives. That's, I think, got to get all vetted out, right? I mean, that's kind of what you've done in the
And that's
past.
sort of where I was going with the capital things, because
Yeah,
instead of buying some piece of equipment, if you don't think there's value in that, could that be used to drive down our borrowing costs, which does drive down tax rate? You're not directly
yeah,
using free cash, but say one example, the police have this van in there and the
Yeah.
thing, it's $500,000. That's a big number. It's a value judgment, could that be done regionally? Could it be, I have all sorts of questions about that. But if you leave that $500,000 in free cash, and you could use that either in a future year or for reducing debt, maybe that's a better thing. There's some of these things just make a lot of sense, because we've learned that you have to replace so many police cars a year, or you'll end up, in a big mess, right? So,
More in debt.
yeah. Or having to do
Yeah.
7 in a year, or not having services. So I don't know.
Right.
I think that's
Like, we have
where it's
to-
hard to think ahead of getting all that information in January, where, like you said, where you come down on everything, because part of it's getting the explanations. I don't feel like this year is quite the same extreme, to use a word, as last year's sort of more shocking number. This is more in line
Yeah.
with numbers
Right.
of the past.
And like one of the things over time that we've learned is we have to keep planning, for example, for fire trucks, like they wear out. But it's like 2 years from when you order it
Right.
to when you get it, and the price keeps going up. So like planning is important.
Yeah.
So we
I guess-
answer your question.
I guess I don't personally feel a need to have a statement of another number at this point. From where I sit, but yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
Please.
I mean, preliminarily, we're not getting a ridiculous number.
Yeah. I agree. And I think this time when I went through the budget, I think for me, the main theme was, are we running into any risks? Because the state aid may be impacted for next couple of years or few years. How much are we relying on the state aid and the grants? I mean, everything we are saying, we are getting grants, so we are doing the matching grants, but then what do those matching grants lead up to eventually in terms of more costs that we may need to absorb in the future? Now it's a grant, so we do the project, but then later that project turns into a full-time position, as well as some maintenance work that needs to be done to whatever we have done. So is that feasible? Number one. Number two, the grants, how much are they impact? Have we considered enough of the risks which are coming up in the next couple of years or so, or maybe more? And how much is our town impacted due to this? Does this mean like, okay, suddenly we have less grants, we have less state aid, we have less property value, people, the property prices haven't risen the way they should. What do we do in those cases? So yes, I'm not much shocked by the way I was last year in terms of the number, but then for me now, with a better understanding, it is more of, have we considered those risks?
And I think all that's fair. And I want to stress again what I tried to say at the very beginning, which is I'm not advocating for a number yet. I do think that I don't agree that it's too late to be thinking about it right now. But I think what my experience has been is that if we wait till we're debating the individual articles, it is too late. We will not make a significant difference. And we also know that there's still some big contracts that are going to be signed and stuff like that. So that 3.9 is a floor right now. But I think it's healthy for us to have in mind that if we want to go the route of making a recommendation, now as we go through the budget meeting, as we start reading the books, that's the time to start thinking about what that might look like if we felt we wanted to have that discussion. So again, my point of this wasn't to say we should be going for a number now. It is to be saying that this is the right time to be thinking about how we should be preparing ourselves to think if that's the right
So
next
keep
step.
it in the back of our minds as we
Yes.
go through the next several weeks.
Just because it
Yeah,
worked,
that's right.
to the extent that it's made a difference, it worked doing it that way than the alternative.
Yeah, that makes perfect
So.
sense. Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. Hopefully, we'll get there sooner rather than later over the next few weeks, but I'm expecting a lot coming out of that budget meeting.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the question really is, do we meet one more time before the budget summit happens, just because we would have read a bit more, we would have probably thought through a lot more, or do we think, let's hold on to the budget summit? Because like you said, one thing which we don't want is...
One thing I think that is useful to do at a meeting, and it can be done ahead of the budget summit.
Yeah.
Probably in another week, we'd have a version 2 of the warrant, but you go through the warrant and you decide who you're going to want to hear from. Now, the ones from the large capital items for the departments she just mentioned, you're going to hear about at the budget summit, so you don't necessarily have to schedule that. But there are other articles in here that we might want to start.
With the community preservation, that was one I was not aware of, yeah.
And apparently they're going to present, so maybe we don't need them here.
Yeah,
But
that's right, that's true.
But
A lot of fire, police,
I think there'll be
DPW.
more added, because I know I don't think any planning department articles were in the back here yet, and they're having a couple anyway. But whether that has value to people planning ahead or not. Do we want to hear from Assabet this year? Last year, we kind of waited till too late to ask them to come. Probably be good, because we didn't hear from them last year, to have them here this year, but you need to plan that in advance.
We could probably ask Aspet very early,
Yeah. I don't know when they,
when they're ready.
yeah, they probably had to finalize their numbers and booklet, but they can't be too far from that, I'm guessing. That they could come in early February or something.
Assabet has always given a very thorough, very engaged, very comprehensive, well thought out presentation. I would say that even if you didn't like everything that they had said, then what? Nothing really changes, though. I mean, you can't.
Right, we don't get say in their budget.
Yeah, it's not one of those places where you're going to be able to have a lot of pushback. So
I'm not trying to push back.
No.
necessarily.
I
don't
only
know.
didn't say that.
That's not my criteria. My criteria is education.
totally fair.
I mean, you understand about what you're funding. You understand what the school does. You understand the students they have and the programs they have. It isn't the school committee isn't to tell them how to spend the money. It's to learn how they've decided they want to spend the money and whether I think that's reasonable. Because our job is not to run the departments. Our job is to listen to the people and decide if that sounds reasonable. So that, I mean, because, it's the same as, I guess, the DPW coming in. I'm not going to, I don't change anything.
You understand?
So I think hearing from them is not futile, I guess I would say.
Very fair.
So ASBET funding is part of the school budget, right?
No,
No,
part of the
it's its
overall
own
budget.
school budget.
Wow.
It's not in that big number that you vote. That's the so-called school budget, which is about 73 million this year. It's outside that. Because the school committee does not control the Assabet
So it's part
school.
of the
There's
budget.
a Assabet Valley School Committee.
It's a
that does
separate
that.
line on the,
It's an assessment, really. So that, that alone with all our new members too, I think it would be reasonable to have them because you learn about stuff
What
like
they
that.
do. Yep, yep, yep. So I think
But-
I was looking at the meeting. So FY24, they had it after the summit. I don't know if they would present in the summit as well. I think they did. No,
No,
don't
they would
present.
never come
They
to
would
the
never come to
summit.
the summit. Okay. So I think we can ask them to come probably after the
Is that
summit.
possible?
Usually him and, well, the superintendent comes and Paul will probably show up too. He's more like our rep or whatever. I don't know the exact title, but. In fact, last year, I think not just the superintendent came, I think they had a couple.
The year
Last
before.
time, we had a couple people, like finance. It was not
Yeah, I
last
mean,
year, it was the year
presenta-
before,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Their presentation is good and thorough.
right?
It just, we don't have the ability to really push it at all.
Yeah, we don't have an influence.
Well, and therefore you want to keep it to 20 minutes or something too, you know? You don't have to give them an hour.
Right. So maybe, I mean, if we're going to meet between now and the summit, maybe asking them is worthwhile because it's just information. And it's information that'll let us know how big a chunk we are going to have to pay for Assabet. Because the other thing is, it's not like they base the number that we have to pay on the number of students we're sending. So, the town is basically telling us by the people who vote to go there, who choose to go there, how much we need to pay.
Well, they make decisions too on the costs of per student, so
Right.
it isn't, but you're right.
Are we deciding that we will meet because we have 2 days? We cannot meet 119. We have 122 Thursday and 126 Monday before the summit.
Yeah.
Are we thinking
I would-
about meeting once to go over the warrant articles as well as see if we can
guess
request
I
a
would-
presentation from Asabel?
I'd probably suggest the 19th, be just from the,
isn't that a holiday?
No,
19th is
sorry,
Monday. I'm
not the
okay.
19th, the Thursday.
22nd?
That's 22nd.
Yeah, the 22nd. Because I don't want to do it during the week of the summit, which we also have the budget hearing on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no.
So I think if we can do something
10
that
days from now.
Thursday, Thursday the 22nd might make the most sense, and then see whether,
Well,
Assabet
that's
can
contingent
come.
if they can come.
If they can come, yeah.
If they can't come,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
unless there are other topics we want to
So
cover.
that would be school liaison, right? We'll be sending the requests.
I have asked about,
Perfect. So
he didn't return my emails or phone calls, so.
The superintendent?
And I did Paul George, that's who I had as my contact.
Oh, well, you can go on their website and just find out who the current, it used to be
Last year,
Ernie Hood. I don't know if he's still
right,
there.
last year it was very effective to just call Assabet during the day and leave a message. It was unbelievably effective.
And yeah, if you call Assabet, then
Yeah.
you'll get somebody.
Yeah,
and
that's what I did.
and they're, okay, so you didn't talk for George, or you asked for him?
I asked for the superintendent
Oh,
and I
okay.
asked for Paul George.
Oh, okay. But they didn't get back to you yet.
No,
Okay.
no, I got my notes.
All
But
right.
I'll try again. So I'll take care of that one. I'll
Thank
see
you.
if they're available and they can present.
Yeah.
Okay.
awesome. All right. I think we move next to the liaison updates. Andrew.
Sure. So, capital expenses planning. We finished our run of the presentations and the meetings. There's 5 of them. In the end, the goal was going to be to spend between 1 to 1.5% of our budget, which was going to be $1.5 million to about $2.1 million from free cash. And as it was, there was none of the items that we were evaluating were so egregious as to fall off the bottom of the list. And the full suite of all of the stuff that we were approving was going to be in that $1.8 million range. And I have to double check now that I have the budget book where they've settled on with the police van, because the original plan for the police van was to see if we couldn't get funding from the state or from federal support for local security. What we got in our most recent update was that it was no longer looking likely that we were going to be able to get any funding from elsewhere. So the majority would fall to the bottom line for the cash for the town. So I think the total went from around 1.4 million to about 1.8 million. And again, I haven't looked at the most recent batch of numbers, but so that was the police van was one of those areas that was sort of attracted some of the most questions, but also had one of the bigger impacts ultimately on the budget. I was also at a rec meeting, and it looks like they're going to be holding off on dealing with anything with the pool for a while. So obviously there wasn't anything in the pool for this budget cycle, and nor would we expect to see it for a couple of years. They're trying to pursue other potential options. There's apparently a friend of the rec center group that is forming that is looking to see if they couldn't stand up something with the pool with like local funding and no, not town centric, but obviously that'll depend when it comes around to what the whole cost will be. And so, but it's an initiative right now that's kicking off outside the town's support or financial support at this point. Any questions about capital? I focused on really just the one bigger thing.
We have a lot of new members. So
Yeah.
Could you give a brief, what does a capital expenditure committee do? We
Sure.
have these 4 meetings, we do,
Yep.
and this is what we do, because I think certainly there's 3 or 4 people who weren't here last year.
Thank you. That's a good point. I should have considered that when I started. So, Capital Expenditure Planning Committee is supposed to be able to provide a first pass with a number of different constituents from the town. We're represented. I'm our representative here, but there's the select boards represented, schools represented, towns represented. There's a whole bunch of people who are represented who are going to do the first pass of grilling the folks who show up for all the capital expenses. So it begins with the town going out to all the folks. They now are doing a 15-year capital plan. We didn't see that for what we did, that we only did 5-year looks, and with a primary focus on the next year or two, if there's things we could push back or consider pulling forward. But the conversation for the meeting is to do that first pass, and again, to have a target for where the expenses are going to go and what we would consider approving. I consider that, as a couple of other things, to be egregiousness checks. And if there are things that we all vote on specific criteria for each item that is presented to us as being part of the capital plan. If there's anything that shows up as exceedingly low that we might take off the table, that would be a conversation. This year, nothing else met that term. I mean, there are things that I find that I would stand up for differently. So, for example, the golf, the country club has their own expenses that they have to stand up, mostly golf. And the fact is, they have a golf pro who knows how to run a golf course. We have a successful golf course. So I would argue something like that on the capital plan isn't really our place to knock down. If they need an aerator and they have the money and they're building their own capital reserve, then it's really their place to say, like, that's what they need. There are also the ability to look ahead a couple of years. So also thinking about the town, the golf club, that they may be looking at a multi-million-dollar irrigation system that they may need to put in a couple of years. That's the kind of thing that we can start asking questions about now as well, to make sure that they're building up their reserves appropriately, that we know how we cover it, that sort of thing. So it's an exchange on all capital topics. There are elements like schools that aren't part of capital expenses. Like, so for example, we did discuss school roofs. and the plans going forward with that. You know, we had an architect that was part of the group. We had other specialties there that they could ask questions that were really good. It was like the Rod Shafford of the capital expenditure planning committee to have an architect on hand who could ask the questions. Great questions. So that is not part of the capital expenses planning committee. It's not what we approve, but you'll see it is part of the capital planning, and it does show up in the capital budgets, but that's not within our purview to discuss because it's money that will ultimately be a borrow. That's not what we're worried about, like agreeing on. We're just looking at the entire capital plan. So we wouldn't be able to shoot down the school per se, but we would talk to the things to consider. What are the options? You know, just robust discussions at a detail that very similar to what we have here. You know, in all truth, but it's focused specifically on capital. It's 4 meetings to review everything, to bring in all the different departments, and 1 meeting to bring the whole thing home and vote on the feedback from all the different members. So
That's interesting to me. I did not realize you didn't really talk about the borrow articles. I just thought you guys ended up deciding that someone else decides where the money comes from, but you really decide whether it's worthwhile.
sure, and we would agree that it's on the plan, but
Okay.
we wouldn't have any say to tell the school not to do it. Like it's really the school, not just the borrow. Like there are other articles on there that we know are probably going to be borrows as well. Like in the past, we've talked about them, but this is also the very first year that we accepted everything that was on the slate without having anything that didn't pass the egregiousness test. So because it also fell within our target. So if something is coming to us for this year's funding, then the town has said, managers, give us your most important project. They've culled through and set up a plan for when they think things are coming. If we push things off of the plan, there's a likelihood they may show up later. If they're most capital items. So I'm thinking police vans or DPW. Something like the police. The police had a scanner last year that didn't get approved as part of the discussion. But they also realized that it wasn't going to be something they were going to bring back for a later conversation. So if we pushed back a 1-ton truck for DPW, for example, it's going to be on next year's. And then next year's is just going to be that much larger. So the intent is to make sure we're managing the capital plant of this town with a longer term than we would necessarily look at here, because here we're going to get what's been on what's within the scope of the warrant. You'll see within the book that you'll see multi-years out, but the capital planning is where we would make sure that the town is really on track to manage the full capital plan of what they're talking about.
Can I ask you, so I was looking at
Yeah.
that schedule, that CIP 7. So there's some line items in there that are like from the DPW. Okay, but instead of it all coming out of free cash, it's also looking like it's getting sourced from like the sewer retained and water retained. Why
Same
is
thing with you'll see the
They're
same,
used for those purposes.
it's being
exactly,
used for that purpose?
correct.
Okay.
And that's when I talked about the golf course as well, those are coming from restricted funds as well. So as with the sewer, as with the golf,
So the DPW needs that equipment in order to service the sewer.
So the way it works in municipal government, you have your government funds, which are our tax levy, and then you have your business type units. So
Okay.
water and sewer are business type units, which means that I, as a user of water and sewer, my service fees pay into that fund. And so they essentially keep their retained earnings to pay for capital. They don't go against the levy. So we as taxpayers aren't footing the bill for any of those things paid for out of that fee, but I, as a user of those services, am paying for it in the fees I've already paid.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
if you didn't use town water, town sewer, you aren't paying for, say, and they often split these trucks, say, in thirds. A third of this
Yeah,
time,
this is
this
what it
truck is
is.
going to
They
be
do that
doing
with a
water,
lot of them.
it's
Yeah.
going to be doing sewer, and then it's going to be doing road maintenance, which comes
Okay.
from your
That's why-
tax levy.
That's why it's
Yeah.
being.
So,
Correct.
those
and so it's just where you get the money from, so that if you used water and not sewer, you'd be paying for this part, or
Got
if
it.
you,
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, I was wondering why it was like split across. Yeah, the different
That's
ones.
very common on the DPW ones.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
But
exactly
like
it.
police cars are used all under the levy, so they're not under
Because no
water,
one pays
sewer
this
here.
fee for
Yeah.
service. fee for
But the
services.
DPW ones often get split out.
Can I ask you-
And now there's stormwater as well,
Yeah,
so
that's
they
right.
might take 10% from,
Just on the capital, so on the van, or the, what do they call that?
The police van?
The mobile command vehicle.
Yep.
You know, the $500,000 almost. So, I donated a lot of money to the police foundation, and they said that they were gonna fund part of that. So I'm kind of curious into source of funds. And I know a couple of people on the board as well. So I thought some of the funding, I knew the police chief was gonna go after grants.
Yep.
So we talked about that, but then also sourcing the funds from the foundation. Because now we have a fire foundation and a police foundation, kind of like what you just talked about with Friends of the Rec Center.
And I will say I don't remember any of the conversation about being funding unless he was considering that at the higher level of alternative sources of funding.
Okay.
And he ticked through a couple of different options that to me sounded like federal and state sources. So he may, again, I haven't looked at the last of the numbers, but he may be looking to fund a part of it. You'll see there should be a total cost here as well as how much should end up coming to us. So I remember the van being something like $600 some odd $1,000. So maybe it was 600,000 or 800,000. So maybe it is still being split. I couldn't say for sure.
Okay.
I'll look
No,
at the book. But
curious.
yeah, I wasn't aware that there was a foundation that would be paying for that. I do remember the foundation came up last year with the target range,
Yep.
which was supposed to be kicking in some money for that as well.
Yeah. They've accumulated quite a bit of money to support both the police and fire. And it's goodness, right? It's all great that they're doing this for,
Yeah.
and we're benefiting from it. And it's a kind of an injustice that we don't know about those things either, that, there's a nice, groundswell of community community interest, and also putting forth funds to do that,
Yeah,
to support them.
yeah, it's part of the message of how the town's getting funded for things.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense showing up in some of the messaging somewhere
Yeah.
in this budget book. But that's obviously Paul DeChristie. But
Yeah.
that is interesting, though.
But
That's
that
kinda
was
cool to
really
know.
helpful to understand how they, kind of like they capped it at the $2 million. Yeah, for the CIP.
Yeah, update, library is still on track for, I think it's the last week of August is the estimated building occupancy permit. No real big gotchas yet. Lots of smaller things they find as they're almost done taking things apart. So we could be almost at the end of things you discover. And we are starting to get a very nice, just last week was the first week I got it, was like a weekly report on what they're doing. We have a monthly big meeting, and then there's a subcommittee that meets weekly with the group. But anyway, it's moving forward. The street's reclosed up now, and
So is that still on track, on the
Still
budget, on budget?
yeah, I mean, there's a contingency, so we're using some contingency, but not an alarming amount. And nothing has derailed any of that.
When are we expected to move into that?
They're supposed to be allowed to move in the last week of August, so it'd probably be September.
Yeah, around
because
fall.
they're gonna have to plan to move.
Yeah. That's what I was hearing, that it's
If
all
things go
2026.
well, it'll be September move in probably. They'll be similar to last time. They'll close for a week or two and move back.
Yep.
That right now is looking positive. But we'll see. That be sometime in the fall, I'm sure. Yeah, it actually moved, forward a week or something or two from what my recollection was. So things are going okay. We have an excellent owner's project manager. You really, if your experience was this too when you were on a building committee, but the value of having a good owner's project manager is just huge. They push back on the construction company for getting the right information on, and really do represent us very well. There was one set of work that wanted to get done, and they'd gotten a quote, and they thought it was too high, so they recommended just changing it to a time and material sort of thing. And I think it went from $60,000 this blanket quote down to about, I think, 24,000 or something in actual, like, what it took, or what it took to do it. Or I might be mixing up hours and times, 24 hours versus 60 hours. But anyway, less than half, by them knowing, like you were saying, experts that know, this shouldn't take that long. Let's do it this way. And they are very informative. So it's good to have experts on the team.
Yeah, there's folks like Steve Durrett who helps support the school building efforts, who just an amazing resource in terms of a font of expertise where they can push back, but absolutely knowing how they can work with the owners, project managers and stuff like that. It's just so much, you can learn so much being on those projects.
Yeah.
Interesting. Great. Any other updates?
No.
Did you want to look at the meetings past the,
Yes.
that people seem to like filling up their calendars? So, past the budget summit, we pretty much, maybe you fill in every day, but
So I have already reserved the room with Amanda for all
Okay.
the upcoming Mondays and Thursdays. I told her, like, I'll cancel as needed.
sounds
Yep.
good.
So we have,
Yeah, I think we agreed to do our placeholders, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's already set.
Yeah.
Depending upon how we want to meet next, maybe when we decide for Jan 22nd,
Yep.
we can figure out the next few dates. Probably we'll need after the summit all the Mondays or the Thursdays, except the President's Day, which is Feb 16th. We passed the minutes, so
You had mentioned whether you wanted to talk about that memo about the minutes.
oh yeah, the open law, right? The open law, right? So I think I got this note from Amanda about the open law, which states that, I think the crux of it that I got was that any meeting that we have, the minutes have to be approved and submitted within 30 days of the meeting.
That's a rough.
Roughly, yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Depends how often
30
you meet.
days or 3 meetings,
Yeah.
whichever is the.
The
so if-
committees that meet monthly, it could be
Yeah,
quite a
so
bit.
if you meet like 3 times only within next 3 months, then yeah, you have to do it within the 3 meetings.
We
So
pretty well stay on that. I mean, we got a little behind there for a while, but
yeah, I don't know if it also means we have to post as well.
they should be being posted. So that's why I was with Josh, because they're approved, but they have to be available to the public. And so somehow in the spring, we got a little lost on getting them onto the website. So we have all those, so they should be able to go up there. The only thing I kind of noticed in this, which is something I used to do when I did the minutes, but it kind of fell off, is it does suggest that you would list the people who are absent as well as the people
As well as the
present, and
present
we
and
tend to
remote.
only list the present. And I used to list, I just kept the one list, and you could move people up and down. It's easier that way, honestly. But so I did that on the draft of the minutes for tonight anyway. So.
Yeah, it needs all the 3. It needs who are there, who are not there, and who are remote within those who are there.
Yeah,
So
we've been doing the remote thing.
yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yep. So for today's meeting, I took the details from Josh about the Zoom and I activated the auto transcript.
Okay.
So let's see if that saves our minutes.
It might be too much, though.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it depends what it comes
What
up
comes
with,
up to be,
because
exactly.
we don't want a 20-page diatribe of, you don't, yeah, it
I mean,
depends. If it's a summary
can always
versus
be
a
summarized, yeah.
transcript, the transcripts get to be too huge.
Yeah,
You can summarize
you can
those as
summarize
well.
pretty well.
Yeah, if we have the details, that's better than having less.
All right, so let's see how that works.
Yeah. So that's what's.
And I've
my side.
recorded the votes, but maybe the meeting, we'll figure that out too. We'll see. See how smart that AI is.
We're heading there. Anything else before we call adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Ahuja, yes.
Bradley, yes? Oh, I'm sorry.
Clap, yes.
Okay, wait, Lundberg, yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, Beth. Hunt's okay, yes.
From CS.
Leslie, yes.
OJ, yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, Westboro
Who's
team.
not going to vote yes for that? That's 800 for the AI.
Yes.